Patties. No, it's not, bro. I'm not though. But I'm not. But I'm not.
Cash App from the App Store or Google Play Store today.
Damn, we got carrots and shit. What the fuck you got a carrot for?
Available in 6 designer colors.
Mr. Squidward, come look. Don't that look appetizing? Good, sir.
With a sock Squidward in this shit.
Patty with extra purple.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Binging with Babish, where this week we're finally taking a look at Pretty Patties. Now, the late, great Stephen Hillenburg, creator of SpongeBob, specified that Krabby Patties are meatless. So as you can see, I have the entire vegetable kingdom strewn before me. But before we can make any pastel patties, we have to make some brilliant buns. Now, my first instinct was to recreate the brightly colored, barely browning bread from the Brood Witch episode. Now, not only did the egg wash used to adhere the sesame seeds to the bun cause the bun to brown, but late that night I awoke in a cold sweat, remembering that eggs are not vegan. And on the off chance that's what he meant, I decided to start over with a lean burger.
Bro really started over because he put eggs in. Nah, you're dedicated.
In a large bowl, to which we're going to add 10 grams of instant yeast, 30 grams of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of kosher salt that we're going to regular size whisk together to make sure that everything is evenly distributed throughout the flour, before adding 275 ml of water and 60 ml of neutral flavored oil like vegetable or canola, mixing together at first by spatula and then by hand until combined into a shaggy yet homogeneous dough. Normally we would now want to knead this within an inch of its life until it passes the window pane test, but since we have to make 6 different colors and I don't want to make 6 different batches
You ever
of dough,
eat some good ass food then want to eat some more good ass food? Bro, I haven't even eaten today, bro. I'm starving.
First I'm going to break it in half, place it
Yes, bro, all the time.
ready the food coloring of my choice, and then with the food processor running, slowly drizzling a small amount of color down through the feed tube, then letting the dough process for about 45 seconds total, both evenly distributing the color throughout the dough and helping to develop gluten. Use the dough as a sort of sponge to pick up all the scraps, give it a sort of gestural kneading, and place it in a covered oiled bowl until nearly double in size. Then we're going to rinse and repeat with the remaining doughs, orange, red, indigo violet, and good old-fashioned green. Once everybody is well kneaded and tinted, it's time to let them rise. Cover everybody with plastic wrap and allow to bulk ferment at room temperature for 1 to 2 hours until visibly embiggened by anywhere from 50 to 100%. Next up, shaping. Go ahead and dig out the first color of your choice. I'm going with orange. Weigh it and divide that number precisely in half because each of these mini batches is going to yield 2 extra large slider buns, which I realize is an oxymoron. Go ahead and roll each portion into a nice, smooth, taut ball, lightly pressing down each to make sure that they don't end up too vertical, and arranging with plenty of space on a parchment-lined baking sheet before covering with oiled plastic wrap. Once again, leaving it to its own devices for 1 to 2 hours until nearly double in
What
size.
the hell?
Then comes the sticky issue of sesame seed adhesion. I'm going with a water wash to keep things vegan and to prevent browning, but that's going to have all the sticking power of, well, water. So they're probably going to have all the staying power of my hairline. Either way, these guys are headed into a preheated 350-degree Fahrenheit oven for 15 to 18 minutes until nicely puffed and set and registering between 195 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit at their thickest point. Allow to cool completely on the trays if they're on the lower end of that spectrum. Now onto the issue of vegan cheese-style products. Once again, I'm only making one of each of these burgers, so I don't want to make a huge amount of each different color of cheese. So I'm lining these muffin tins with oiled plastic wrap and using them as a mold for each color. For the cheese itself, in the bowl of a blender goes 200 grams of rinsed cashews, 200 grams of refined coconut oil, 2 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon of kappa carrageenan, 25 grams of arrowroot powder, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1.5 teaspoons of onion powder, 1 teaspoon garlic powder, 25 grams of nutritional yeast, 15 ml of lemon juice, 100 ml of sauerkraut or pickle brine, and 375 ml of cold water. This stuff's
Bro's making cheese like this?
rather thick, pasty paste, for which you're probably going to need to enlist the help of your favorite blender stuffer, pureeing for at least 60 seconds on high speed with varying levels of difficulty until completely smooth. Next up, you're going to gently heat this on the stovetop until it reaches 180 degrees Fahrenheit. I can't seem to find footage of this, maybe I didn't hit record, but here's the stuff after it's been cooked, which I'm now distributing into each muffin cavity, where I'm going to proceed to tint it using a little bit of food coloring and a tiny whisk. This should hopefully yield 6 pucks of sliceable, meltable, colorful vegan cheese. All it needs is to be covered and refrigerated at least 4 hours or up to overnight to set up, the kappa carrageenan hopefully giving it a bouncy cheese-like texture. Now, upon extraction, I discovered that the tiny whisk betrayed me and the cheese color was not as consistent as I had hoped, but it was delightfully sliceable, kept its shape, and was actually very cheesy. It definitely
One's on SpongeBob look way better. Static ass video. Can you turn the vid up a bit, please? I got you. Bro, over here making pretty patties. that?
Food coloring for some
That
reason.
decent?
Maybe just add the food coloring before putting it in the mold. Now,
Bueno.
the patty part of the pretty patty. Obviously,
See,
there's
what am
a
I
lot
looking
of
at right
colors
now?
in nature that we can put to good use, but how do we turn them into veggie patties?
We're making
So as you
pretty
can see
patties.
that I am preparing
Thank you,
a
bro.
litany of legumes, cooking these 3 different colors of lentils to their various states of doneness, draining a whole bunch of different colored beans, and peeling some purple potatoes. Normally, I would just.
Bro, he
cover
said
this
that
with
Mr.
water,
Krabs
cook
said in
them like
SpongeBob,
it's
Krabby
made of
Patties
egg, but
have
we
no
wanna make
meat.
These things as purple as possible. So we're gonna cover them.
Just fucked up my reality.
Cook them like it's any other day, but during their last 3 minutes of cooking, I'm gonna add some thinly sliced purple cabbage, making sure that it's fully submerged before adding a teaspoon of baking powder, which uses science or magic or both to turn the cabbage and the cooking water a brilliant shade of blue. Definitely not totally necessary, but I wanted to try it out, and this seemed as applicable an application as I could apply it to. Go ahead and spread this out on a rimmed baking sheet so that it can cool entirely before being fashioned into a burger. Also, corn. Just corn. Now it's finally time to start prettying patties. The patty equation we decided to work with was 1 part cooked vegetable, in this case spinach, 1 part legumes, I'm using half green lentils, half edamame, half a part the grain of your choice, I'm using brown rice, 1/4 part breadcrumbs or ground oats for a binder, 1 tablespoon vital wheat gluten, and salt and pepper to taste. Pulse until a ground beef-like consistency is achieved, thickening with more rice, ground oats, or vital wheat gluten as needed. And there you have it, our green patty. Don't have super high hopes for this one, let's try
It was
yellow.
different
Starting
per
with
patty
yellow
for the-
lentils,
that's crazy.
aforementioned corn,
I thought it would be the same recipe and he was just throwing a little food coloring. No.
Just fried corn cake. Then for orange, I'm going grated carrot for the vegetable, brown rice for the grain, and
Okay,
white
yeah, so
wheat
this shit
for the
probably-
binder. Medium
this shit
hopes
gonna
for this
taste like
one. I love
outside.
carrots, but I've never described them as burger-like. Next up for red, I'm going kidney beans for the legume. What I know are going to be divisive sun-dried tomatoes for the vegetable, brown rice for the grain, and ground oats for the binder. Pulse until pebbly, and let's be honest, not red enough. So this is going to be the one patty where I cheat with a little bit of food coloring. So let's all just collectively pretend that we didn't see that. And then for purple, as you might have guessed, I'm going with peeled and grated beets. This, along with some neutrally colored pinto beans, produced a picture-perfect purple patty. Next up, our blue potatoes and cabbage are going to be accompanied by blue corn tortilla chips,
I'm gonna lie,
rice, and vital
very
wheat for a patty
visually
that I'm
pleasant,
sure
but
it's gonna
this-
taste awesome. I mean, it's mostly
I'm
potatoes.
gonna
and
let him
chips.
see.
So
I'm
there
gonna let
you
him
have
see
it,
and talk about it.
6 different veggie
Remember, as a
burger
crab patty
bases,
meat was just
each of
crab
which
meat.
are
This dude
pressed
is doing the
into
most.
patties the same width as
Said
our
Bati
pizzas.
boy.
The last thing that now remains is a slicing of the vegan cheese.
Bro, he
And
did
because
the
that
absolute
stuff has
most.
the
Ain't no way the Krabby
consistency
Patty is
of
crab
dough,
meat.
More about shaping than slicing. Once you get your cheese, arcs,
I wouldn't
and
put it
crabs
by
ready
Mr.
to go,
Krabs.
we can start slicing our buns. I wanted to make consistent, even cuts, and as it turned out,
Dude, his
toasted
daughter's a
buns
whale, bro.
also was the perfect pedestal upon which to prop our bun.
I don't know what's
And,
going
of
on in
course,
their
being
house.
French for bread. First things first, once our buns are sliced, we gotta toast them. I don't care what your burger's made of. I don't care what you're made of. You deserve a toasted bun. Once everybody's varying degrees of
Toasted
visibly
bun's
golden
cool.
brown, we're gonna make sure that our pan is nice.
Less
and
is
hot
more
and
with the
well
toasting, I'm not
oiled,
gonna lie.
Considering that our patties have little
I don't
to
really
no
like a
fat on
crunchy
their
burger
own.
bun.
As you can see, each patty browns at a different rate, so be sure to keep a close eye on crusts, especially if you're making 6 different kinds of veggie burgers at a time. Also, use caution when flipping with all that excess oil in the pan. Once everybody's fried up, it's time to color coordinate and serve. Each patty, bun, and cheese getting carefully color matched before being placed.
Nah, he got the little
Also,
art. Nah,
the
you're
artist
doing the
palette
most.
in the same color, order, and orientation as presented by SpongeBob on the show. And there you have it, folks. Pretty patties. Lots of stuff to unpack here, so let's go one at a time. I'm scared of losing even more sesame seeds, but we must take a look at these cross sections. First up, the green pretty patty. And while this particular veggie burger was decidedly veggie-oriented in its flavors, it had a nice little crisp to it and played really well with the vegan cheese. Next up, the orange patty. Look at that cheese sorta kinda melt. And this one was good. It didn't really taste like carrots, but not much like anything else either. Next up, the purple, violet, or mauve patty, which mostly just tasted like beets, which means I'm not going to eat it unless there's goat cheese. Next up, the yellow corn patty, which to my disappointment only barely tasted like corn. Next up, the indigo, or midnight blue patty. This one I'm most excited about, and it's pretty good, but it really does just taste like a tortilla chip burger. Last up, the red patty, made from sun-dried tomatoes and beans. Now this one at least kind of looks like cartoon meat, but it doesn't taste as much like sun-dried tomatoes as I had hoped. So let's rank them. First up, purple beets, not so
What type of
great.
watch you
Next
got
up,
on?
yellow corn, about as bland a burger as ever there was. Almost the same story for
I'm
the
not gonna lie, I
orange
can tell
carrot
he don't
burger,
fuck with
then
these.
the red sun-dried tomato burger, a little bit more flavor, but still kind
Yeah.
of disappointing. Then the blue burger, which was good, but maybe a little morally questionable. And then, believe it or not, I think the green was my favorite. It's a veggie burger that's not pretending to be anything other than just that, a veggie burger. But I think we can agree there's one thing that all these patties have in common. They are indeed pretty. Thanks again to Cash App.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
money. That
Pretty, for sure. That's it, though.